You let me know when you think we're ready.
Hey, let's get going.
Welcome, everybody, to week 2 of the wrap, Zoom style, as I said last week in my tweet and my Facebook post. And hopefully we didn't drive you too crazy with the side-by-side screens. But, Georgia, it seemed to be a good response from the people I heard. How about you?
Yeah, no, I've heard a lot of good things. In fact, because we didn't know how this was going to turn out either. But hey, after watching the draft, going to everybody's home, all the coaches, all the general managers, all the players, everybody has a dog, everybody has kids. You get that, it's like, did you enjoy that more than watch all these guys show up in their $1,000 suits? Yes, I did.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. Somebody made a statement about it. I'm not sure where along the way, but somebody said it's nice to know that coaches, even though they're busy working, could have their kids standing right alongside.
Yeah.
And I think about the movie. Oh my goodness, I can't think of the name of it. The one about the Philadelphia Eagles and the
kicker.
Vince, huh?
The kicker, you mean?
No, Vince. Oh heck. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And they got Dick Vermeil on there, and the kids show up, and he's working. He's in watching film, and the kids show up. We were both coaches. We know what that's like. That's reality right there.
It sure is.
You're working, but when the kids show up, the things change, things turn, and you don't obviously spend maybe a lot of time, but you change your focus and you change what you're doing. So I thought that was kind of real life. It was good stuff.
It was good stuff. I agree.
To me, it was interesting to see how some of these guys had like the war room in front of them, and other guys just had a laptop. It looked like, oh, here I got it.
And there was one that had a war robe. I mean, there was from top to bottom on the walls. There was all kinds. It looked kind of like my solarium. So it was, But hey, there's a lot of information. 255 guys coming out, and we might have an inkling of who's going to do what or where. Frankly, they don't have any idea.
Well,
it's a shot in the dark for all of them.
Injuries can play, a desire to keep playing football. I think some of those guys have that happen to them. All of a sudden, you know what? It becomes a job. When you're in college, it's kind of fun. You go to class and you're busy, and then all of a sudden you become a pro, and maybe it's not quite as much fun. You don't love it as much, and you end up losing your edge. So I just wonder how many guys that happens to, where guys all of a sudden just kind of lose their love, their lust for it, their whatever, and go out and smack each other around. I mean, some guys never lose it. Some guys can't stop it, but I think some guys do, and they find a way to do it. And so, yeah, it would be interesting. I mean, everybody thinks Joe Burrow is a slam dunk to be the greatest whatever, but you know what? We've talked about it last week. He's only going to be as good as the guys in front of him.
That's exactly right.
They got to give him time to pass, and I don't care how good he is till he gets some bodies that are up in front of him, and he learns the system. It's going to take a while. And hey, I hope for Cincinnati's sake, I hope he has a great long career and does the things that he can do. But again, there's no guarantee that. I'll use Carson Wentz as an example. Look how he's gone from peak to valley with the injuries and the highs and doing the great stuff that he's done. But that just shows you how quickly it could be over.
It's a very quick, and I mean, I used to even say to the kids in the 9th grade, football is not a long career. No, even if you're really, really good, it's not a long career. Yeah. So you go out there and you give it for whatever you got, and then you hang them up. And out of high school, 90% of the guys do exactly that, and then it just clips on. I was really I was looking for some offensive linemen for the Vikings, and they come up with Ezra Cleveland, and Ezra Cleveland's from Boise State, and so that's kind of one of my teams. Yeah, I got a Boise State shirt on for Ezra to come. Ezra's 6'7.5" and 315 pounds, and there is no bulk on him. He is just big. He moves really well. I don't know how fast he is, but I think the Vikings might have got themselves a nice offensive tackle. And anytime you do that, that's a good deal.
They were talking somewhere along the way again about the fact that the Vikings were going to trade up to get him, and then it looked like we don't have to trade up because nobody in front of us is going to take him. He's going to fall to us. We're going to get our guy instead of paying Trent Williams $12 million it was, and him being unhappy and whatever else. We got a guy who I think is going to probably be doggone happy to be in Minnesota. And looks like I said, he'll be a guard or a tackle. I don't care which, just as long as he shows up and plays football and does the things that we need to do. And,
yeah,
they drafted, I believe, one other lineman we talked about earlier today, and they signed a couple of 2-3 offensive linemen as free agents. So they've got a bunch of guys coming in that they're going to take a peek at and see what happens. And, overall, the Vikes, I read some reviews, and they basically said the Vikings were top 3, graded out as the best job in the draft.
They needed defensive secondaries. Who doesn't need defensive secondaries? And so they were going to have to put a chunk in there. I really would have liked this if they would have got old Anton Winfield on there. But I tell you, the team that made out in the draft was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They go over and they get this guy named Tom Brady, and then they get this big Gronkowski type guy, and then they go through and they pick up Wirfs over at Iowa, probably the best lineman on the one or two of the linemen. They pick him up, stop, and get Winfield, and pick up Johnson and go home. Hey, it's just like, hey, they're doing really well. If anybody's improving their team, it's gotta be the Buccaneers.
Yeah, we have to like what we see. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on what the Bucs do during training camp, if we have training camp. And all that other business. And we definitely, it's going to be fun. They talked about the kids in the Minneapolis paper yesterday that had Minnesota connections. And they talked about Antoine Winfield and then Ben Bartch from St. John's.
Ben Bartch from St. John's, yeah.
He went in the 4th round, which kind of surprised me a little bit. Tyler Johnson. Kamal Martin went to Green Bay. Poor son of a gun. I feel bad for him. Carter Coughlin got drafted by the Giants. I feel bad for him as well. But, he got into the NFL. Deshaun Cornell from Ohio State, who came out of Cretin-Durham Hall, he got drafted by Detroit. And Chris Williamson, who was a cornerback with the Gophers, he's out with the Giants as well. So Minnesota connections, not too bad out of 255 guys, and not being the hotbed of football, we didn't do too bad.
5 Gophers being signed, that's the most since they dropped the 12 rounds draft. And so, did they have a good team last year? They did. Mm-hmm. And, and this kind of, and I'm not sure that there's not going to be other free agents. I know that Army took their top 3 guys, signed them over as free agents. There's going to be a lot of free agents and a lot of really good football players out there. Tim, what I'm really surprised at is these offensive linemen. They are huge.
And they can run.
Well, they do. And it's Mekhi Becton, offensive tackle from Louisville, 6'6", 365 pounds. And they say that he might have a weight problem. Well, yeah, he might be, but
and he ran 5'1" in the 40.
He ran 5'1". He could slam dunk a basketball.
He looked smooth when he was running.
He did look smooth. Yeah,
us fat guys, we look pretty bad when we're running, but boy, I'll tell you, he looked pretty doggone smooth.
Yes, he was a very fine athlete, and so you watched him, and then the other one that was Andrew Thomas. And he's probably the best offensive lineman of the bunch.
Possibly.
But I'll tell you what, I was thinking back a couple of years ago when he was starting to break in the league, and they were showing him as a freshman and how well he could dominate and do it. And he was beating up senior All-Americans at the time. And so, he's an awfully good find. And I tell you, the Giants have him as well. So apparently the Giants are pretty serious about what they're doing. I got to ask you though, what did you think of Green Bay picking up Love?
You know, I think I understand why they did it. You know, they found magic in a bottle 14, 15 years ago when they drafted Rodgers, and things went well for them. If you're not a Brett Favre person, if you're not related to Brett Favre, Favre would probably say things didn't work out so well for him as far as things go in Green Bay. So I understand why they did it. But do you really believe that Aaron Rodgers isn't got 3, 4, 5 more years in him?
No, I do.
I mean, I do. So to me, if the Packers don't believe that, I think to me that's what they said. They don't believe that he's got 5 years.
Rodgers is just about the age that Brent Favre was when they drafted Rodgers.
Yeah.
So,
So to me, I mean, yeah, you might get a superstar in Love, but at the same time, you might alienate your team. I know I saw Gutekunst's reaction when they asked him why he didn't draft a wide receiver. The right combination wasn't there, and somebody said, "Why didn't you move up? Why didn't you trade one of your other picks so you can move up and get a wide receiver?" I mean, I guess if I'm Brett Favre, if you're Aaron Rodgers, you're telling me, "Hey, I'm expendable. You didn't go get me a receiver, and you drafted a quarterback to replace me. So what are you telling me?" I mean, I love to see the Packers in turmoil, but they're trying to say that there's no issues, there's no problems, and you know, is Aaron Rodgers the quarterback in Green Bay after this season? My prediction right now would be no. After this season, Aaron Rodgers will be gone. He'll request a trade, whatever. It will be interesting to see how Rodgers, if he teaches Love up like Favre didn't with Rodgers. That'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But yeah, Suhan, I mentioned him last week, George, about how I had about ready to give up, and he said in the article the other day that it was good to see that the way the Vikings won in the 70s is still going to work in 2020. And I was kind of like,
yes.
All right, where's he going with this article? And he basically said the Packers, the Lions, and the Bears just would screw things up. They'd find some way to botch it and whatever else. And he said the Vikings would just do what they had to do, and they were successful. They won division after division after division. He said that's what happened on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. The Vikings did a very good job of drafting, and everybody else pooped the bed, so to speak. They didn't take care of business. And the Vikings, he said, are in the driver's seat to be the division champs next year. And you know, if everybody shows up and does the things that they can do, and we haven't even talked about Justin Jefferson yet from LSU, the first pick, the 22nd overall wide receiver there from LSU.
Hey, and he is talented, Tim. He is talented. He's got great hands. He moves well. He is very talented man.
The only complaint that I heard was he's a slot receiver just like Thielen's a slot receiver.
Yeah.
So how do you – and I'm like, well, remember, you got to have two slot receivers. You know, most of the time, if you go four wides, you need two slots. So having him there to be a slot on both sides, I think is an interesting dynamic, and we'll see where this goes. But I really like that pick. We talked last week. You thought they might wait for a wide receiver because it was so deep. But there he was at 22, and it was just like he's not going to probably be there at 25.
He's not going to be there again. No.
So we better take him now. And then they traded down, and they worked on my – when they traded down, George, I was mad because I was ready to go to bed. I'm like, I only got to make it 5 more minutes. They're going to make it to this pick, and then
they traded it.
They traded down, and I'm like, 45 more minutes I got to stay up. I didn't get to sleep till
I did too.
Almost midnight. And, you know, I told you how early my work schedule is now, the way I've been doing things. Whoo, that was a tough one. But, you know, I think they got a cornerback, a couple of cornerbacks to work with in the draft. And they had holes to fill. It looks like to me like they filled them. That is the number one thing. Like I said, the Packers didn't. What did they do? Chicago's got 10 tight ends on their roster right now.
What are they going to do with them?
I don't even know. they had 9 and they drafted another one. I'm just like, wow, this 10th one, he better be doggone good. And then you need to send about 6 of those guys down the road, because what do you do with 10 tight ends?
Well, out of the first 10 picks, there were 3 quarterbacks, 5 defensive backs, including a linebacker, and 2 offensive linemen.
Okay.
And I never would have, they did not draft a running back till the 32nd round, or the 32nd pick. So there is 1 running back taken in the first round. Is that because they're so loaded with defensive backs and wide receivers that, or is it indication of there's going to be a lot of passing and no running?
Well, yeah, I think that's part of it. It's become more of a run by committee. If you got a great running back, that's great. But if you've got a marginal running back, you can get those guys pretty much a dime a dozen. To me, a lot of guys said that Dallas had a great draft. And that was because they drafted, CeeDee Lamb, right?
Yeah.
Number 17 overall. And they thought that was a great pick. And I'm kind of going, all right, so you got CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, you've got Ezekiel Elliott, and they all want the football, and they're all not going to be happy unless they get the football. And everybody's saying, oh, the Cowboys, they're going to be just impossible. And I'm going to go, yeah, they're going to be impossible to live with each other, because last time I looked, they only played with 1 football. There isn't multiple footballs. And I said the Golden State Warriors, of course, I said the Golden State Warriors would never work out because there was too many stars. But what I can say for them is they check their egos at the door. And if players are willing to do that, then Dallas can make that work. But with Dak Prescott, he's pretty mellow. But I'll tell you, Ezekiel Elliott, he's so full of himself. He whatever. And if he doesn't get to touch the football so many times, and Mari Cooper, who's a great talent, I think he's got the same problem. Throw me the football or whatever. So I just wonder how all things will play out if everybody, like I said, puts their egos in the right place, and they can be very successful. Otherwise, the chaos will begin, and it will continue for a long time.
Well, it will. And I tell you, I'm looking at Jim Jones. He does not look like a happy man. And, he's poured a lot of money into this team over the last few years. And they've got, on paper, they're as good a team as there is in the league. And yet they lose the big ones. And I'm thinking of when they lost to the Vikings last year. It's just, they were never in that game. And you just take a look and just think, geez, Vikings must not be bad, or the Cowboys aren't as good as they are.
Yeah, definitely. The Cowboys definitely aren't there. And like I said, I think that comes back to a lot of the infighting that goes on, and everybody is worried about me instead of us. And I think a lot of what the Patriots were able to do, we give Bill Belichick and Tom Brady a lot of credit for what went on there, and they should get that. But a lot of it was everybody checked their egos at the door, and nobody went into the public and said, oh, I'm not getting the ball thrown to me, or I'm not getting the ball handed off to me, or I'm not. You didn't hear that stuff. Everybody said, look, we're all working for the common purpose here, and I don't want to hear you. I don't want to see you pouting on the sideline. I don't want to see you throwing your helmet like number 14 in purple did a few times last year. We don't need that stuff. That's not the way we operate. And that's why the Patriots were as successful as they were, in my mind. Not because they had the greatest talent, because everybody put their whatever aside. Even when our good friend Randy Moss was there, when he was a Viking, he'd sit there, and if he didn't have the ball thrown to him 8 times by the time the halftime came around, we got the old pout, and then he'd wouldn't run a route and whatever else. You don't see that stuff with New England, because he didn't do that stuff in New England, because they basically told him, you ain't going to play our way. We'll ship you down the road. You don't want to win a Super Bowl? Forget you. We'll win it with somebody else. And
I'm not sure just how well the Patriots did in the draft, but I'll tell you what, they got Bill Belichick, and he will build another team. There's no way around it. He's never not been successful.
It's going to be interesting to see not having that extra offensive coordinator on the field, Tom Brady, being able to go, oh, I've seen this situation 180 times. This is what I do in this situation, and I take care of it. With a quarterback that probably doesn't have that kind of experience, and it won't happen as smoothly, but then you never know, man. We're going to find out how good Bill really is.
We will. Yeah, that's exactly right. But keep in mind, there's a lot of young quarterbacks over there. Lamar Jackson and Mahomes and the rest of these guys, you'd think, geez, are they as good as they actually are? Well, yeah, they are. And, they bring in their skills and they can run, they can throw, they can see the field pretty well. No, there is other Tom Brady's out there. And, but we keep in mind that he was drafted in the 6th round.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we shall never forget that he was drafted 199th overall or whatever it was. Well,
Yeah.
that will be put in there for a long time. Anything else on the draft that you want to get out there that you've got written down on your sheet of paper there?
I did. I'll tell you this. This is what I did. I got there. You can't see it here, but they're all blocked in, and I have all 255 guys on there. So, I'll tell you, there's a couple of other people I want to bring up the Vikings, and that's I think James Lynch, edge rusher.
Okay.
Edge rusher. Boy, I'll tell you what, if you're going to get defense right now, you better have an edge rusher. And there were a lot of them on there. I like that term.
So tell me
how Baylor, and he's a big, strong boy.
How does the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, okay, and I'm not putting the Big 12 in with the SEC or maybe even the Big 10, but it is one of the Power 5 conferences.
It is.
And the Defensive Player of the Year gets drafted 130th overall. I think you're right. I think the Vikings found themselves a very possible replacement for Everson Griffin and whoever else we need to take care of. This was, I think, a big steal.
No, and everybody took a look and they said, because I didn't really, I didn't know. I seen Lynch play a couple of times because I like watching Baylor, and they've got a nice team and they had a good team this year. But people were saying, no, he is the jewel in that crown, and so I'm really looking forward to watching him come out. And who the heck else? Jeff Gadney, cornerback from TCU.
Yeah.
And he's had some injury problems, but I understand he has all the skill set to play the position. A little bit young, but those cornerbacks have to be developed. They just don't go run out there and do it.
Yeah, you got to get them coached up. And I thought that when they drafted Nate Stanley, the quarterback from Iowa, he was
there you go. Look at that. Were you surprised at that?
3-year captain. They talked about, when they drafted him, that his arm isn't really strong. I didn't realize he was from Menominee, Wisconsin. I mean, he's essentially a hometown boy. He's only like 60 minutes from downtown Minneapolis, so or from the Twin Cities area there. So it'll be interesting.
And he's a good size. He's a good sized kid.
Good, big size. Yeah, good size.
Yeah, no, and we've watched him play. The last 2-3 years, and I was always been impressed. He'd come back and take care of the Gophers in high time. So I was glad that they kind of picked that up. I was surprised, but hey, it's always nice to have an extra quarterback.
Yeah, and like I said, has he become a practice squad guy or something like that? That's kind of where I see him. And if things go worse, because somebody gets injured, then he gets to move up. But a lot of these 6th and 7th rounders don't stick around. They end up getting cut. They all can't make the team. So some of these guys get cut and they get brought back for practice squad fodder and whatever else. So
they drafted another edge rusher as well, and that's a DJ Wonnan from South Carolina. He looks like some real potential. South Carolina did some things last year. I think they beat Georgia, didn't they?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. So it just like all of a sudden this edge rusher's coming on, and as I recall, the Vikings weren't bad there last year. Did they lose any of their ends?
Yeah, the Vikes are, with losing Griffin, Everson Griffin, and like I said, you can never have too many good defensive ends to rush the quarterback. So, if you can rotate, you probably need 4. And if they can get these 2 guys on the team, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
The other one, Nate Stanley. And Kenny Wilkes from Michigan State, another edge rusher. So they drafted 3 edgers.
3.
They had 15 picks. That's more than anybody else in the league.
Yeah.
Yeah, they zigged and zagged.
And they didn't waste one on a special teams person, which was good.
No, they didn't. Not like Not like who's the guy with the tattoo of this? The punter, the kicker.
Yeah, I know where you're. I can't think of his name right now, but I remember hearing about him.
Yeah, no, he's got a bad tattoo. So,
Yes, on
but
his
he says
arm.
that isn't how he really feels. Trust me, when I put a tattoo on my body, that's how I really feel. It's one of those things. So,
Yes, youth, right?
yeah, and it was like he was drafted way high.
Yeah, I think 4th round, if I remember right.
As
4th or
I
5th
think it
round.
is too.
So,
Uh,
well, I gotta let everybody
anyway,
see my.
you know what was nice?
What's
We
that?
were able to talk about sports for 3 days. I was so excited, and the one morning started at 11 o'clock in the morning. Sue just said, "Oh, good, you're gone now." 11 to 7. No, my butt was so sore from sitting around that Saturday. On the other hand, there's 255 guys. This is the most important day in their life. I'm going to sit
Well,
around and see how it comes out.
yeah, I tried to pay attention when the Vikings were on, but I was out and about and cleaning and doing spring things, trying to stay after things. So I would admit on Thursday and Friday I was watching pretty closely, but Saturday I had kind of like, yeah, it's time to move on and we'll watch what the Vikings do. So yeah, 3 good days. The NFL pulled it off. It seemed without any hitches.
I was amazed because that's a very difficult thing to do, and everybody seemed to have a pretty good time. And the commissioner, he was up there. He seemed to be enjoying himself, considering how many hot wires he's had to chase in his life. He had a pretty good time, and everybody was booing him, and he liked that. So,
of course.
yeah.
Well, I got to let everybody see my hat up close. Can you read that? So the Dudley Hewitt Cup you see on the top is 2015. Yeah. Of course, this was the hat back then. The Dudley Hewitt Cup was supposed to start today in Fort Frances, April 28th to May 2nd, 5 years later. Same exact date. So all I would have had to do is take the stitching out of here and change that 15 to a 20. And I'd have been ready to go for tonight. They'd have started playing hockey tomorrow. And unfortunately, with everything that's going on, we're not going to have a lot of good Junior A hockey to go watch over in Fort Frances this week, and that's one of the unfortunates. I was actually out for a bike ride this afternoon, thinking, "Geez, I have a lot of time on my hands. I'm getting a lot of stuff done. What's missing?" And I'm like, "Holy smokes! There's no baseball games. There's no softball games. There's no golf. There's no
sports takes a lot of our time.
There's no track and field. There's none of this stuff that I'd be going to do. So, geez, I feel, like I said, I feel accomplished, but I also feel left out. And like I said, the last time the Dudley Hewitt was here, we did some of the games on the radio back then, and the hockey was wow. You're just seeing some of the best 20-year-olds and 19 and 20-year-olds in Canada and in the States, and it was some great hockey. It's just unfortunate that we're not going to get to see that this time.
No, that's really too bad. And I know you love that hockey, and especially when it's across the river over there. Hey, they do play some good sticks.
Yes, they do. So what's your opinion on as we go forward now that we've canceled spring sports in Minnesota? That's all gone. Well, have you got a prediction in your mind and in your heart, because those two could be different, on when we get back to playing the games?
Well, they had I can't remember his first name, Daniels, and he's the president of Purdue University. And he was on the other day, and he was talking about, he says school is going to change. We have a situation, and until we can get a shot in the arm to protect us from this thing, we're going to have to kind of defend ourselves, he said. But he thought that Purdue would have students this fall. And if Purdue has students this fall, then I think that they'll have football. They're not going to have football without the kids. So if the campuses open up, they'll have fall sports. Now it's this second wave thing that bothers me, and maybe they're going to have to start a little bit later and see if it comes and take a pause with it or something. I don't know. I mean, it's a tricky situation, because difficult to protect yourself from this one. This one's just bad. They asked Mike Osterholm the other day, he said, I used to walk over at NBC and they'd have Tim Russert, and Tim Russert would always tease me and he'd say, is this the big one coming, Mike? And Mike Osterholm said the other day, I got news for you, Tim. This is the big one. So, it's strange situation. It is really strange. But I can't see this culture not having sports again. It's not just sports either. It's all cultural things. Anything that requires a group. It's a very, very tough deal.
Yeah, it's a tough deal. And I don't want to be whatever about this, but I was watching the news tonight, and the Oxford has this possible vaccine.
Yeah,
and they were pretty positive about what it could do, and then they said, but we won't have it in full effect. We won't know for sure until September. And I'm like, whew, that's a long time.
yeah. See, that's the deal.
Of course, if you're going to bring it out in September, you got to have enough to get people to give them the vaccine. And if you're going to vaccinate, millions or billions of people, I can see why you don't want to be saying, well, we'll bring some out in July and we'll give it to this country, and we'll give some more to this country. And you better give it out all at the same time. So you better have enough to do it. So I understand why they need to be aware of things, but it seems to be changing daily. And that's, I think, the frustrating part for us common folk. Everything seems to be new. And every day it's just like, well, it's not the same. It's changing now. Tonight they're saying kids, it really hits when a kid gets it. It really hits them. And
it does.
It's less like, but like I said, who knows how many people have actually contracted the virus and have shown no symptoms. It's such a scary thing to think about that you'd get the virus, but you don't show the symptoms. But I guess that's the way things work, right?
Well, I tell you what, I'm kind of, this is the first time that I've been this grateful for living in an isolated area. New York City, or get some of the situations down there in work or school. Hey, you're in tough shape, and there's no way out of it. And so, I'm actually feel pretty good about living up in good old International Falls. And we do have people coming in and out. We have a bridge. We have a train that comes across 30 times a day. So there's plenty of things. But theoretically, anyway, if I keep my hands washed, keep my mouth shut, and stay inside, I'm in good shape.
Yeah, and they opened up the boat landings. And so I know I was talking with my neighbor the other day who works at one of the bait shops here in town. And he said, you wouldn't believe how busy it was on Friday and Saturday with the opener of sturgeon fishing, and how many people were from the Twin Cities area and coming into our area to go sturgeon fishing. So
yeah, that's
right.
Obviously
a concern for us, but I guess you got to see how things go. We're opening up a little bit at a time, and hopefully that's the right thing to do. We'll kind of keep chipping away at it and get this thing open back up to where we need it, where we'd like it to be.
Well, I think we have a good man in Tim Walz running the show, and if I have to serve in anybody's army, I'll serve in Governor Walz's. He's got both feet on the ground. He's strong, and he will look whoever he has to look to in the eye and tell him this is what we're going to do in Minnesota.
Well, and I know some people have said, well, it's too much power for one person. One person shouldn't be able to say this is what we're doing, but I don't think he's just doing it by himself. I think he's got people with him and behind him and telling him what to do. And so I hope we're doing it the right way. We'll probably never know whether it's right or wrong, but you got to do your best guess and move on from there. Have you been watching The Last Dance at all?
No, but I tell you what, I've been holding off on that, but I am going to watch it because I've heard so much about it, and Isaiah Thomas was always one of my favorite basketball players. So, if
it wasn't 10 hours,
yeah.
If they could have got it down to maybe like 3 or 4 hours, but you watched the Band of Brothers. The Band of Brothers was 10 hours plus, right?
Yeah, it was.
It was, it was a serious investment, and I decided I was not investing 2 hours every Sunday night on the Chicago Bulls. I lived through the Chicago Bulls. What could they possibly tell me that I didn't already know? And of course, I said that to a couple people, and they're like, "Yeah, but you get all the inside information." And I'm like, No, you get he said, because Jordan said he said this, and Pippen was this and this. It's just the drama. Now Rodman's going to come in, and oh my, I don't need another soap opera. We got. I'm living through a soap opera. I don't.
Mike Jordan would not have been as successful with those Bulls without Pippen.
Oh,
Pippen was he was there consistently all the time, and Rodman, although he's a little bit nuts, boy, I'll tell you what, he's scooping around 10, 15 rebounds every game. He was clearing the glass during that playoff.
well, and
that was a great team.
Yes, yeah, they were a great team, and we talked about checking your ego at the door, and Jordan never had to check his ego because he was everything. But Pippen, I give him a lot of credit. You know, he could have probably been a superstar on any other team, and he decided to stay there and win some championships. And he kept his mouth shut. As far as I'm concerned, he really didn't rock the boat. He didn't whatever. He did what he was supposed to do, and he walked away with 6 rings. And a lot of people will never get to say that. And that to me, that's kind of what it's all about. And if you can do that and not have to worry about well, I did this and I did that and I'm not getting the credit, that just doesn't work, right?
Well, Isaiah says he was the 4th best. There was Kareem, there was Bird, and there was Magic, and you can't argue about those 3 either. Between you toss Michael in that pile, and boy, I'll tell you, you have a one-way ride to the Hall of Fame. Those guys are great.
Yeah, you know, if I were to, and I know I get in trouble when I talk with my students in class. We've talked about this before, I think, but of course they're big. Kobe Bryant and LeBron James are the best ever, and of course, I understand. I lived through Jordan growing up. There were people who lived through Kareem growing up, Bill Russell, whoever it was. And when you are at
Bob
that
Cousy.
age, when you're 20, when you're 18, 20 years old, whoever the greatest player is will probably be the greatest player ever in your mind forever. And so I understand what those guys are talking about. And I know people can talk about Kobe and his relentlessness and LeBron and his, but Jordan could take it to another level. And I would take him or Magic Johnson. Magic he just wasn't going to lose. He was going to do what it took. If that meant I got to get 25 rebounds tonight, I'll go get 25 rebounds. Or if I need to get 18 assists, I'll get 18 assists. Or if I need to score 35 points, I'll do that. Or if we need a triple-double, we're going to get it done. So, like I said, Magic was something else in his day, just because a 6'9" point guard, you didn't see that back then. Now, you know, you got Durant and all these guys, 6'11", running up and down the floor, shooting threes and doing all that other stuff. And it's crazy to see what happens. So, but I
saw Magic play when he was Magic was a freshman. He played at Michigan State at Williams Arena. He scored 8 points, got a couple of rebounds, some beautiful passes. Nothing outstanding. He changed the game. He completely changed the game, and I was there with the guru and looking at each other. We didn't know what we were seeing. Yeah. But here was a 6'9" guard controlling the other 9 men, and he was so capable of doing that. And with a smile on his face, an incredible smile on his face. He enjoyed doing what he was doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have to admit that might be the best basketball player that I've ever seen play in person. And he was young then, and
because he could, like I said, he could do whatever was needed. I mean, it was that kind. You know, I don't know if Jordan necessarily could have gone out and got 20 rebounds, because that's, you know, he was 6'6" or 6'5" or 6'4.5" or whatever you want to list him at, and that wasn't maybe some of the things that he could do. But I did almost get caught in the other night. I watched about 20 minutes of like episode 1 or 2. I don't know which one it was on Sunday night of The Last Dance, and I'm like, nope. I'm clicking you. I'm changing you. I'm not watching. I'm done. I can't do this. So you gotta be a man of my word. So.
Well, hey, but I'm in a different situation here. There are times I can get downright bored, and so one of these days that thing's going to flop on, and I know I'm going to get hooked.
You should have a 5-year-old move in with you, George.
Yes, that would take care of it. But I'll tell you right now, Tim, and this is no lie, we miss our grandson so much.
Oh, I'll bet.
And they're just they're looking at you like, how come you're not here? It's a tough situation, and all their sports are gone. There's no more hockey. There's no baseball starting. And they're just kind of, I mean, they gotta hang out with their old man. He teaches them Phi Ed. For Phi Ed, they go cut brush.
Oh.
So yeah, he makes them
I
work.
love that kid of yours.
Yeah, you always did. Yeah, we could switch sons.
Yeah. My son informed me tonight that he's the littlest in the house, and he will always be the littlest, and I should not make him mad.
Well,
and I'm like,
there
wow.
you are.
I said, that's correct. You will always be the littlest. There's no doubt about that. And I will always be the boss because you'll always be the littlest. And boy, I'll tell you, he didn't like that. He didn't like that answer.
No. He'll find a way. He'll find a
grow
way.
up. He'll find a way. That's right.
Yes, he was.
All sons have to go through that with their fathers.
They do. They can't do it without it. That's just the way it is. And sometimes it continues for a while. But you have daughters, and they're a different deal.
They're a different deal.
They're a different
They're still
deal.
a little stubborn like their mother, though.
They are.
Yes.
I can't believe that my daughter is in school administration and doing all these fancy things and all the rest of that, like Dave Olson. She could come back to the Falls and be your boss. Ooh. That would be fun.
Yo.
And she's also finishing up her stuff for her superintendent's license. So she, at a very young age,
be the boss.
She could really be the boss.
Hoofda.
Yeah.
Hoofda. Okay, what have you been listening to in the solarium?
Oh, listen, I'll tell you what. I'll show you right now.
Oh, he's getting the album out, everybody. He's going to show you that it's actually the album. You're going to pull it out, shine up that vinyl for you. When you clean the vinyl, do you got to go clockwise or counterclockwise? Does it matter?
This is the one. This is the country music album, and
okay.
This is the one from Ken Burns' show.
Nice. And, I bet that's got some great ones on it.
Listening to is this is an old-time album. This is called The Honey Drippers. Now, you don't probably know who the Honey Drippers are. They made one album, and this is it. But
Sea of Love.
The Sea of Love is in here, and I Get a Thrill, and Rockin' at Midnight, and Young Boy Blues. This is Led Zeppelin. This is Robert Plant and all the guys, and I bought it in 1980, or it was a date 1984, and I've kind of tucked it away. And as I've been going through records, I said, Sue, I found another gem, and I put it on, and I forgot how much of a gem it is.
Sure.
So the neighborhood got to listen to the Honey Drippers last night, and we put it on a little bit loud.
Nice.
I also have been listening to Willie Nelson and his sons Lucas and Micah, and one of them, Lucas, sounds just like the old man, a little bit higher voice, younger voice. Sounds, but Willie is Willie's leaving us his music. I'll tell you that. The three of them are really something. So that's the other one that we've been listening to now.
So I got a question for you.
Yeah.
When you clean your vinyl before you play it, when you clean it, does it matter whether you go clockwise or counterclockwise?
Well, I have a little juice and I have a cloth, and I turn the turntable on, at first I just kind of rub it and I clean it off. I have another little brush down there that can get into the grooves. But if I do that a couple of times, even my oldest albums come really pretty clean.
Okay.
And considering that a good many of these albums are 50 years old and older, so.
Well, I have to tell you, as long as we're talking about records, I stopped by my parents a few weeks ago, and my mom said to me, "I've got something for you." Okay, what's this going to be? She must have given me about 50 albums. So I'm going to have to go out and buy a turntable so that I can listen to these old gems. from when I was a kid. So
No, I'll tell you, the other thing is about it, you can get a pretty good turntable relatively cheap, and they'll last you a long time. I'm reading about being able to get another needle for mine. You get about 1,200 hours on it, but we've been wearing them right out. So this has been a really good time. We do this every afternoon except when we're broadcasting, and so we do this before dinner. It's kind of a little happy hour and music. We have fun.
So we always talk about what book you're reading. I'm going to talk about what book I'm reading.
Well, yeah. Oh, there you are.
Here's the book I've been reading.
Infinite Powers.
And if I get close enough, it's about calculus.
Yeah, I suspect it would have been.
This book, I'll tell you what, if you went anywhere close to calculus or you took calculus, you've got to read this book, folks. This is every time I start reading it, I almost got to like pry it out of my hands to set it down, because it's just like, how long am I going to read this and how much sleep am I going to miss by reading the book? But Infinite Powers, you should get out there and, like I said, if you're into it, it's fabulous. What are you reading?
I'm reading The Splendid and the Vile by Erik Larson. And this is the story of Winston Churchill during the Battle of Britain. And this is Erik Larson is the best American narrative writer that we have, and he talks about details of Winston Churchill that you're embarrassed to know. I mean, he will, and Winston Churchill loved baths. He did 2 of them a day, and he didn't care who was around to watch them. His secretary would come in, generals would come in. He would work in his bath. He was sitting there, and he would drink whiskey and smoke cigars. But he did this twice a day. Put a little lilac juice in there. He liked the smell of that. He was a real character when it come, and then he'd put on his bathrobe and go out and do a cabinet meeting. He was really kind of a character. But the situation was such that how he slept and how he was able to keep any control over his faculties during this time. It reminds me a lot of right now. But it's a great book, and the vile part, that's Adolf Hitler. So they flash back and forth between Germany and England, and I come to find Hitler really didn't want to invade England because he wasn't quite sure he could do it, and until he got all his bombers shot down, that's when he realized no good. So that's when he quit. No, that was no good.
All right, anything else for the good of the cause?
That's kind of what I've been reading.
Anything else that you want to talk about, George?
No, I just, I'll tell you what, there are people that do sports shows all the time, and I don't know how they do it, because there really isn't much to do for sports. But let's just keep a handle on it and see where we can go from here, because sooner or later this is going to end, and I have every intention of watching you coach this fall. So,
well, I hope so, and of course, the NBA is threatening to open camps where they can. So maybe by next week we'll know whether we'll be talking a little NBA possibly.
Well, it's got to be a lot better than Virtual Horse.
Yes, it does.
I couldn't believe that. What do we got? Virtual Horse. Is people watching it? Yes, a lot of people are watching it.
That's for sure.
We are really sports cultured people, and I'm the worst one, and you're bad. You're really bad too. So it's one of the things where I don't know where we go from here, but I do know that I feel incredibly bad for the kids, and they're very, very precious people, and you know that even when you get after them,
Absolutely.
you got to do that.
Yeah. So.
I wouldn't have been much without somebody putting the boot to me once in a while.
Yeah, we all need to be spurred on, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, George, have a good one. We'll talk again next week.
Okay, you can
Thanks,
just tell me
everybody
when.
out there. That's the wrap, everybody.
Everybody, please take it easy, and all my friends out at the Muni, we're coming back out. We think about you all the time. We have no noise here. That's one of the problems. But I'll tell you what I can do right now, Tim.
Uh-oh.
I can close with a little music.
Okay, very little. We don't want to get YouTube mad at us.
No.
You know how they get mad when you got copyrighted music playing in the background. But are you gonna put on a little honey drippers?
Huh?
What are you putting on?
Joe Walsh. Life's been good to me so far.
All right, folks. We'll talk to you next week.
Take care, buddy.